PRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary. You know, this is a podcast you could listen to in the library because as long as you have headphones on and take a nap, just don't snore because you're listening to Sleep With Me podcast that puts you to sleep. All right, everybody, it's Scoots here. I want to talk about sleep phones, the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me. Sleep phones, a soft, stretchy headband where you can listen to Sleep With Me in your bed. You won't wake up your partner. You can bring it with you when you travel. So if you're visiting someone over the holidays, what an amazing gift are Sleep With Me branded sleep phones. And the only way we get credit and the only way you can get Sleep With Me branded sleep phones, or even if you choose another model, is to use our link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones. Oh boy, but right now through November 29th is the Black Friday sale, so you could save even more. Maybe get some sleep phones wireless or the sleep phones with wireless charging, because you get 20% off everything excluding gift cards between now and November 29th if you use the code Cheerful20. That's one word, Cheerful20, and use our link. Otherwise, we don't get credit, and you won't be able to find those Sleep With Me branded sleep phones at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones and use Cheerful20. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about Helix Sleep, and they've got an amazing Black Friday sale. You know, I have a Helix Sleep. I have the Dusk Lux. My siblings have Helix Sleeps. Some of their kids have Helix Sleeps. My daughter has one. Which one's best for you? Have you taken that quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep? Because Helix has over 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Lux Collection and the newly released Helix Elite Collection. They've got a mattress for big and tall sleepers, even a mattress made just for kids. And how will you know which Helix mattress works best for you and your body? Take a Helix Sleep quiz and find the perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. And then your personalized mattress is shipped straight to your door or free of charge. Helix mattresses are fiberglass free. Helix supports military, first responders, teachers, and students by giving them a special discount on site. And unlike a lot of mattress companies out there, Helix owns its own manufacturing facility. Each and every Helix mattress is made by a team of skilled manufacturers and shipped directly from their facility to your door. And you should never have to compromise on comfort. Helix has mattresses with cooling technology that helps regulate your body temperature, whatever the season. Now you're talking. That's what I love about my Helix. And, you know, there's nothing worse than going to a mattress store and having somebody, you know, watching you try out mattresses, rushing you from mattress to mattress. They're asking you questions. You know what? You could order a Helix mattress online and try it out in your home with easy, no-contact delivery. I mean, that sounds pretty simple to me. So take that quiz. Every Helix mattress has a hybrid design, combining individually wrapped steel coils in the base with premium foam layers on top. It's a perfect combination of comfort and support. Like I said, when I took that Helix quiz years ago, I got matched with the Helix Dusk Lux, and I love my mattress. I can't say enough about it. So go get your Helix. Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners in honor of Black Friday. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep and use code HelixPartner25. That's one word, HelixPartner25. This is the best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. All right, everybody, it is time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. The one part of the podcast I need you here. It's where I pop my peas, if you please. I thank the members of the Deep Dark Night United who went the extra steps to support the show. And that's how we get to be here free, is these people that are taking action. And I really appreciate it because I know how many of you appreciate it because I've heard from you. And I want to thank Margaret. Now, not only is Margaret supports the show financially directly, but Margaret has heard the ads. So Margaret went to helixsleep.com/sleep, took the Helix Sleep quiz, got matched with the Midnight Lux, because Margaret said my old mattress was no longer comfortable, and Margaret's really excited to let me know about it, let Helix know about it. And it's those actions from people like Margaret, taking those steps that make the show possible. If you want to get on the Sleepy Supporter Zone, you know, support a sponsor, let them know about it, let me know about it, refer some people to the show, let them know about it, let me know about it, tag me me on social media or send me a message or fill out the form at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors like Margaret did. Second part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone is you getting the support you need right now. If you're having a tough time, there's links to resources, including international resources you can connect with right now. It's about being a part of positive change, not just saying Black Lives Matter, not just saying support Ukraine, not just saying stop AAPI hate. It's taking action, learning more. There's links to resources you could do that because we're part of a lot of different communities here. And I know it's not an easy time right now for anybody. And one of the organizations we're supporting is Hand in Hand. I heard about it from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I'd love it if you join me in supporting Hand in Hand directly. You could either Google it or you could use the link in our show notes. And I'll just read this one statement from Hand in Hand. Raising children to see the humanity in one another is the only way to change our world. It is the only path to ensure that our collective fate be one of safety, peace, and equality for all. So get over there, learn more about Hand in Hand, and support them. Mystery Bart, a lot of people work hard on this show. Who are they?
This posty poster son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes too. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the mystery bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the transcript.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. Don't forget, sign up for our referral program. If you prefer to listen to Sleep With Me ad-free, you can earn ad-free months by referring people to the show. Just sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. And what do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, you have all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep or is here while keep you company while you fall asleep. We do it a bedtime story. We throw in a bonus meandering intro. I guess I'm in a little bit of a silly mood. We do it a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do. I think about, I just buffered. I don't know if anybody heard that, but that was live buffering. Maybe we could talk about buffering in the intro. But what I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. If you're new, I'll explain all that to you. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to buff. You know what? I'm going to buff the heck out of this safe place like it was a freaking shiny car, and I was a 16-year-old. With a shine, I guess if I was a 16, yeah, maybe let's just pretend though. If I was a 16-year-old with a shiny car, probably you should buy a lottery ticket because that's not gonna the odds of that happening, of me having anything that unless they've invented permanent shine. Here, that's another thing we could talk about and maybe market permanent shine. But I got to talk to the new listeners. Now I have both my hands have fingers crossed, and I don't even remember what the first thing was. Permanent shine and something else. Oh, buffering. Oh, I guess there's a difference between buffing and buffering, but I'm going to buff this safe place up. I'm going to pre-buffer. I'm going to have the biggest buffer. I'm going to cache the heck out of this safe place while I'm buffing it, so there will be no buffering. Super cached. Sleep With Me. The podcast that has a safe place that's been buffed and super cached and which puts the podcast that puts a buff in buffering. I'll say that in another intro probably. Okay, so if you're new, I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, goofing around. friendly, warm banter, ideally. Some people, you may not be able to receive it that way, and that's okay too, but I'm really here to be your boyfriend, your friend in the deep, dark nights, to keep you company while you fall asleep. And you may say, if you're new, what's that you say? I thought this was a podcast to put me to sleep. And I'd say, well, it's a turn and phrase. But really what I do is take your mind off of stuff and sit here as your companion. Stay at your bedside, walk at your side, whatever you're comfortable with, while you drift off into dreamland. I'm kind of like the caretaker. Really, you could take whatever's bugging you and just that's what not only does the super cache handle the caching stuff, it can handle all that that's been keeping you awake. So go ahead, put it in the super cache. Plenty of room. Did you notice our super cache comes padded? And we found out here at the Buffering Institute. What was the first thing I said that I said I should come back to? I thought it would be a good book title. Permanent. Yeah. At the Permanent Shine Institute, we discovered that increases the ability to debuffer at 87 tetrahertz, as we say here. That's a joke. That's an inside joke at the Institute, but I got to get back to let me put some permanent shine over on you new listeners. So if you're new, it's a podcast you don't need to listen to, believe it or not. You may have figured that out already on your own because you're a bright person. You don't even need my permanent shine, but if you want some, here you go. I don't know why permanent shine should probably come with a more brighter voice than here you go. But that's a chill voice. Permanent chill, permanent shine. They come together as I buff away. Also, I get distracted. But so, you don't have to listen. You can just kind of listen. You can lower the volume. You can listen. You can fully listen or you can barely listen. There's no wrong way to use this podcast. And so you don't really need to listen to it. And as I said, I'll be here while you fall asleep. It only puts you to sleep I'm going to be here about an hour. So you have plenty of time to fall asleep. So there's no pressure. Pressure-free, listening-free. Structurally, you've been here this long, but the show starts with about 6 minutes of business. Then we have the intro, which we're in, I don't know, usually they're around 12 minutes. I haven't looked at how long this intro is yet. I'm peaking now. Oh, wait, I have a different battery today. So to save battery, my display is off. But yeah, we're about halfway through the intro. Usually around 12 minutes. Then we'll do story, our episodic serial, it's an episodic series, bedtime story after that. And then we close out the show with some thank yous and some good nights. So you have plenty of time to relax here in this well-buffered space. How about that? Buffered, and buttered, buffed, and buttered. Butter, buffed. There's another tongue. How come tongue twisters... I don't know, am I the only one that's thought about this, that tongue twisters and comforting words are very close. Like you say, well, those are the relaxing words, but once you get them too close together, they become tongue twisters. Like buff, that's relaxing. Buffered. If it's not, yeah, I guess buffered that's the most relaxing word. Buffering, oh boy, you want to talk about teeth grinding. But if you say, well, if your TV said, yo, it's buffered, I got it covered. You don't worry. There won't be any buffering. That is buffered, buffed, buffered, and buttered. I mean, what couldn't, that's so buff, buttered, and buffered. There you go. Buff, buttered, and buffered. I guess if I was on a weightlifting team or something, that's what it would say. Because then I'd cover myself in cocoa butter or whatever the heck it's shea butter, whatever shines you up. Buff, buttered, and buttered. Team Scoots. What does Team Scoots do? Oh, we buff things. Yeah, we're pro buffers. That's why we now live in a buffered world. You know, once Team Scoots got on it, 2019, world was buffered. We dropped that super cash globally, and that was it. That was the day that buffering entered the, whatever you call it when you add an ED. It went from present tense to past tense because it was done. Those were the days. Well, how'd you do it? Oh, permanent. What do we call it? Permanent shine. Yeah, we invented this thing called permanent shine, and it turns out if you buff things with permanent, if you don't need to buff it, you don't got to buffer it either. And it's complicated. It involves electronics and solid state things. So probably also like we repurposed some particle colliders, and that's how we did it. Permanent shine. That's what we call it. It was Project Permanent Shine when it was top secret. And if you don't mind me saying, it was pretty revolutionary. Okay, so you're saying that you used a bunch of nonsense to buffer things permanently. Okay, well, if some of us believe the part of the sums is all whole, and some of us believe the sum of the parts is bigger than the whole, and some people believe the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. And I just say that when things are permanent, why ask why when it's buffered? Well, we do have a question here. Okay, go ahead. One more question from my internal press. Why did you feel the need to have every device everywhere declare things were already buffered? Oh, well, that's the easy question. Thanks. And that's a legitimate question. And I acknowledge that. And you might say, hey, why say it's buffered? And someday in the future, there'll be people that never heard of a buffer, and then we won't need to tell them it's buffered. But this puts people at ease, just like the sleep podcast I used to do before, I became, and I said, he said, buffer. He said, permanent sunshine, sign me up. And I said, you know what? Maybe we could bore some permanent sunshine. I said, actually, it's a permanent shine. But anyway, I got to get back to the podcast intro. I got to cut this press conference short. Thanks for the great questions. And yes, the world will be buffered one day. Buff, buttered, and buttered. Buffed, whatever I like to say. Thanks, everybody. All right. Hey, I'm back. So it's a podcast that puts you to sleep. You don't really need to listen to it. Don't have to take it seriously. I want to make bedtime something you can breathe in, you can relax. Maybe you could barely laugh, or in the perfect world, things would be buffered, including all the stuff around sleep. You could just, like I said, drop all your sleep stuff in my super cache and let me worry about it while you drift off into dreamland. And until that day, I hope this podcast, can, in its stead, once I get the rest of that sorted out, with the permanent shine and the buffering and the caching. For now, let me just keep you company and distract you. Now, this podcast doesn't work for everybody, so give it a few tries. That's what most listeners say. If you're skeptical, why wouldn't you be? I mean, I don't even know what you might say, what the heck did you just talk about? Because it does sound pretty good. And I say, well, yeah, we're getting close. So... I don't know. I hope I can help you fall asleep. That's all I can say. I appreciate you checking this podcast out. Thank you for coming by. And I really hope I work very hard and I yearn not only to help you fall asleep, but to make you look forward to bedtime. Thanks. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With so many in-season ingredients, you'll taste all the freshness of fall in every bite of HelloFresh's chef-crafted recipes. Produce travels from the farm to your door for peak ripeness you can taste. Good. And even though the fall can feel jam-packed, HelloFresh makes whipping up a home-cooked dinner actually doable with their quick and easy options, including their 15-minute meals. That's less time than it takes to get delivery. And with everything pre-portioned and delivered right to your door every week, it's really a no-brainer. And man, I love HelloFresh. Like, there's nothing better than Sunday night knowing that I don't have to go grocery shopping. I don't have to think about what I'm going to cook. I don't have to plan meals. And I know the meals are going to taste good and that they're not going to take hours and hours and hours. I'm just going to open up the HelloFresh bag, pull out the recipe card, follow the step-by-step recipe, and dinner's going to be great. And I can't recommend this enough. Believe me, you don't have to deal with the grocery store on Saturday and Sunday and then spend hours planning out meals and dreading it. HelloFresh makes all of that easy. So you get to live your life, enjoy time with your family, and breathe. So go to HelloFresh.com/50sleep and use the code 50sleep for 50% off plus free shipping. And you got to use that link. It's HelloFresh.com/50sleep and use code 50sleep for 50% off plus free shipping. And let me know when you sign up so I can say thank you. And make sure to tag HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Thanks, everybody. Sleep With Me is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? With Progressive, it is. Just visit the Progressive website to quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's direct rate, then their tool will provide options from other companies so you can compare. All you need to do is choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Hey everybody, it's Scoots. It's like a Tuesday. I guess it's a trending Tuesday, but I was thinking of snow as the holiday season settles in. And it talked about leaves, and I think I've talked about snow in a couple different ways on the podcast, so maybe we'll talk more about it. But I don't know if I've, like, there's nothing I want to get off my chest about snow. But I was like, okay, if I'm going to do some meandering rambles, we could talk about snow, we can talk about sledding, like a little bit of a memory trip. Actually, yeah, it'll be all probably real. Of like some snow memories as a child, but also some snow specifics. And maybe if you're like a deep listener, you'll get some new perspectives on some things I've talked about before. So let me take you all the way to central New York, to the 315 area code, where I grew up in Syracuse, New York. 13215 was my zip code. Or they could be my current. No, it's not my current zip code. In Syracuse, I think, like again, I guess with like I never know, like it has a notoriety for being snowy and wet and cold, and maybe notoriety is a little strong, but that's like one of the things, especially in New York State. They say, "Well, where are you from?" "Oh, Syracuse," and they say it gets a lot of snow there. I mean, maybe someone from Buffalo or Rochester, they might say, because that's the snow belt. And I think I maybe talked about the science, and it like, as soon as my brain is like a sieve-like, or I have sieve brain. So I'm pretty sure that the moisture in Syracuse is due to the Great Lakes and the water temperature and the warm and some sort of jet stream action. And Syracuse always seemed to have like the most precipitation or the most snow. And I don't know if any of that's true. That's just what people always said when we were growing up. And I did have, especially as a kid, as most people do, like a sense of hometown pride. And anytime Syracuse was mentioned in major media, my heart beat a little bit faster. So anytime, they were talking, I said, that's right. I'm so proud of that. My city just happens to be in a place where it gets, the most precipitation. But really, I mean, I guess like the downside is, and this is probably why I moved away, is it's really nice to visit. It's probably a lot tougher to live there. And I do find myself a person that that needs access to sunlight and the outdoors as part of my self-care process, I guess. Here's a little unrelated tip. Those of you that, I mean, even if you live in Syracuse, you can use this tip. And it is a sleep tip. Now, I guess it's a little bit tougher in the East, but you have windows. So it would be the same thing. It's like as soon as you wake up, and this is something I do on and off. As soon as you wake up, ideally you get out of bed right away. Like as soon as your alarm goes off. That's one of the sleep I didn't know how this became a sleep tip episode, but you get out of bed right away. And I haven't mastered that part yet, but usually because also, I don't know, I guess I'm split on that. But if I'm giving tips, I guess I don't want to give the reality, because usually I like to, if I had a dream, I like to lie there and think about my dream, or lie there and say, well, I don't really want to get out of bed. But ideally, I get out of bed pretty quick nowadays. I don't use my phone. That's one of my new rules is don't touch that phone unless you're putting it in your pocket. And it also depends on, my bladder situation, how quick I get out of there. But then I like to make my bed. And now I don't do, I do more of a basic bed making where I try to put my pillowcases back on. From whatever was going on in my dreams, the great pillow makeout or whatever I was doing, or pillow wrestling or pillow hugging. And then I will rearrange my blankets so that it's nice when I go to bed. So and I never was like this until I started making this podcast. I realized it's kind of an important thing. Like they say, it's one of these keystone habits, and I actually believe it. I'm not a big believer in all that stuff, but so I don't really I do make my bed. I don't tuck any sheets in. I just I'll pull my comforter off, then I have a blanket, and then I have a sheet, and usually my sheet and my blanket are pretty well aligned, so I'll just have to flick them and then flick out my comforter. So it kind of is a basic make, and that takes no time at all. And then the next thing you want to do after you visit the facilities, and if you have a pet, dog especially, it makes it a lot easier, is to go, and I'm lucky enough to live in the Bay Area, so I immediately open my back door. Sometimes even Koa lately, she says, it's too early for me, is to go outside, open the door. And I don't know if you're into heavy breathing. I don't know where that came from, but if you're into any breathing or meditation or sitting or journaling, or if you're like a Julia Cameron, like a person, or some, AM writing or morning pages, or just sitting and listening, is to get outside. And I know sometimes I'm up before the sun just because of the, time change hasn't happened. When you hear this, it should have happened. And I'm not a morning person. That's the other thing, but I don't really have a choice because I have too much, I got stuff to get done. But to get access as the sun rises, I hear that's good for you setting your clock. As soon as you get outside, I spend a few minutes, and I just try to listen to the sounds, or if there's birds or something to look at, or trees, or listen to the freeway, listen to the Port of Oakland, maybe listen to whatever other sounds I'm hearing. But I get a little sun, even if it's below the horizon, it's coming. And I think that's a really good way to start your day, and also to end your night. I just do the same thing because my dog's got to go to the bathroom anyway. And I found if I have which I suffer from meditation avoidance, if I do that, I say, well, this is kind of like meditating. I'm sitting, listening to the noises quietly and trying to not be distracted by my thoughts. So it's I guess it's like meditation adjacent. I don't know. Have we reached peak meditation? Probably not. I was waiting to see if Buddha was going to ring up my brain or anything. So if you live in the East, it might be tougher, but maybe you could stand by a window. Or if you have to let your pet out anyway, then you're going to have to open the door. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but that's one of the things is like, getting access to sunlight, or at least filtered sunlight if you're back east when it's cloudy a lot of the times. So I guess that's just a little sleep tip folded in there somehow. Okay, so back to the subject at hand. Snow, let it snow. You know what I'm saying? Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, John. So snow, here's the things I think about when I think about snow. A lot of it is related to my bus stop as a kid that I would have to walk to, or trudge in this situation, or going sledding. So let's talk about the bus stop situation. And here's the interesting thing. Well, I don't know why I can't picture Carl and Sheila, my brother and sister, that closest in age to me. We would walk to the bus. We would take the bus to grammar. This is for grammar school. We did the same for middle school and high school. Yeah, these are grammar school memories. And so we would walk to the bus stop. And usually we would be, trying to get to the bus on time. And it was downhill. So we lived on a hill. And it was a very steep hill, which actually goes into a whole nother set of snow memories, which would be good to talk about. But so we lived on this steep hill, and so we would go down it usually to get to school. Snow, I don't know what we do in the rain. I guess we had raincoats. I'll have to ask Carl and Sheila about that. Hey, by the way, Sheila, I called you last night. Oh, but I couldn't figure out the freaking Bluetooth on my phone. It kept saying it was dialing your number. So I did try to call you just so you know. Not that you're listening, because I don't know if but you might be asleep or you do but I know some of your friends listen to the podcast. What's up, Vanessa? So anyway, okay. Where was I? So Carl, Sheila, and I would go to the bus stop, and we would go there, get the bus, go to school. And usually the only things that were hard in the morning was going downhill. You'd have to worry about slipping if it was really snowy. But Syracuse uses a ton of road salt. And so there's usually a preponderance of this stuff called slush. And this is much different than slushies. Here's the thing. Kids don't, like I always say, don't listen to Scoots. And probably humans don't listen to Scoots. But so slushies, and there's ice, there's Italian ice, there's Hawaiian ice, there's shaved ice, there's Slurpees, there's ices. Slush is much different. And I have tasted slush on many occasions, both intentionally, unintentionally, and at the hands of older kids. And I know I have the exact taste of slush in my mouth, so I'll describe it to you. It's really not that bad. Now, the idea, it just tastes like salty snow with like a gritty, almost near metallic, it's mostly salty snow, overpowering the road salt, but with a kind of, actually doesn't taste dirty. It tastes gritty and a little bit metallic-y. And you could get, you can even get slush splashed in your face by cars. And this might be the slush cast, because slush is really amazing. Maybe this winter I'm going to have to, if get somebody shoots some slush for me, and ideally, if you're listening, its budget's probably 0.0, but in hour segments of just slush views. But so slush is when snow combines with warmer air and road salt. That's how I define slush. And it can be slow, it can be sudden, it can be like a slushy. Like you could get a puddle of slush, which is not a liquid and not a solid. It's like a near plasma. It's in the middle. It's a matter change. I don't know if Bill Nye thinks that, but it's matter in the middle of a change. And I think David Bowie sang about it even. But it'd be it's always gray. And I never knew if that was because of the road or the salt. And I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I think when you see a pile of salt, it does seem like it has a little bit of grit in it anyway. But like probably the road picks it up, but it's always like a stark gray color, and it can be beautiful if you're a fan of gray, like I am. Especially a person that like tends to view the world through all or nothing lens and say, man, one day I'll see the world as all gray. And I kind of Syracuse, I used to call it the gray planet when I was in my angsty phase from like whenever puberty hit till not too long ago. But so the slush, so usually slush, okay, so my relationships with my primary interactions with slush would be, I mean, there could be, I have a lot of them, but my love of slush probably came from after school, walking home from the bus, because, we could walk at our own pace. So Carl, Sheila, and I, we would, I don't even know what we'd do. I think we just split up, and maybe, I don't know who walked the fastest, probably me. Yeah, but when it was slushy, I would like to dilly-dally. I mean, depending on the slush level and how cold it was, because you could really get some unbelievably high snowbanks, and we'd walk up this hill, and you'd see, like, your neighbor's snowbanks, and, I mean, obviously from this podcast, I'd start imagining, I could imagine I was giant. I could imagine I was a mountain climber. There could be other kids around, so we might be doing some snowball play or whatever. You could do some like light sledding, like slide down a snowbank. If the snow looked fresh, you could do like some snow diving, some snowbank jumping, like just measuring it, say, wow, this snowbank's taller than I am. Because what would happen is the roads would get plowed and then people would have their driveways plowed. So the corner of driveways was always the best place for the highest snowbanks. I'm trying to think other, so that would be one thing that would distract me. I was already distractible on my way home. But then, now snowbanks are primarily made up of, correct, snow. But as you get lower on the snowbank, closer to the road, that's where the slush appears, in a couple places. Like the primary slush occurs with the general interaction between the road salt and the snow in the ice on the road. And I would presume, and again, Bill Nye, I'd love to hear from you. No, I'm not kidding. Like this, you probably already covered all this. But so as the salt would heat, I don't know how, again, a little embarrassing, but I think the salt would generate heat from just getting wet somehow by some chemical reaction, and that would melt the snow. But I guess because the roads were dirty or the salt was dirty, we don't have an answer for that, even in my brain. I guess we could presume both. That would be responsible for the gray color, but I guess it would give some body to the melted snow. Now, sometimes the ice and the temperature in the air and the temperature of the ground would be aligned to just turn to water. And in that case, the roads would be black because we had asphalt roads in Syracuse, and there would be salt on the road and maybe water, depending. But if it was a particularly snowy day the night before, or it's still if it's still snowing, that's a whole different territory. I don't know if it would go there, but you would have slush, which would be gray, and it could be like packed gray snow. I guess that would be if it was snowing or if it just snowed. But most of the time, I guess it would be like a slush, just like a slushy, but gray and gross, but not super gross, as I said, because I've tasted it. But the better slush zone was where the sides and the edges of the road met the snowbanks, and also the spray from the cars, because the wheels of the car would spray slush and jettison into the sides of the snowbanks, and that would form some pretty cool looking stuff. I don't even know how to describe it, but slush getting sprayed into the snow. I guess that's how you describe it. But so the slush zone, depending on, again, the temperature and the situation, was good for a couple things. I mean, as I said, pretending to be a giant. I think I did a lot of giant role play as a kid. I don't need to as an adult, believe me. But so like you could be stomping slush because there'd be like great slush bergs, and also cars could accumulate slush on the undersides of the car, and those would be really good slush bergs if they broke off. They would look like a gray iceberg. And depending on how, if they were pure, like if you found yourself a pure slushberg, they're great for smashing with your feet. And sometimes they'd be hard, and sometimes they'd just be like almost like they were sculpted, and you couldn't believe, like when you put your foot on it, that it was holding together. Like almost like it was a liquid that was somehow holding its shape, like almost like it had a like invisible wax coating. And as soon as you touch it, it lost its form. And you'd be like, holy cow, that is cool. And it's just like a really, not a consistency. I mean, no offense to slush and Slurpee makers and stuff, but that stuff, like slush is better. I mean, maybe because of the salt, like slush really was not a solid and not a liquid. Like where a Slurpee or something like that, I feel like is like just really small ice crystals. Where slush was nearly a plasma gel-like thing, or just so small. I don't know. I guess like what am I doing? Like here I am. I'm the spokesperson for slush. Excuse me. And then another great thing that I know I covered before that I love to do with slush was like make dams, because we lived on a hill, and then the slush would start melting. And I don't know if they there'd be rivers of water on the sides of the road from melting snow, even, if it got warm enough, broke the freezing barrier or whatever. Yeah, that the edge of the snowbank was just a great spot to make dams for the water trickling down the hill, and make channels, and then you could make dams. And then, I mean, the cool thing about making dams, is the futility of it in some sense, at least for a kid, because it has action. Like, I guess I never looked at it from a storytelling perspective, but it really is like, a great story, I guess, if you're role playing as a kid, because if you're building a dam made out of snow against water and the temperature's not freezing, you constantly have to work. There's going to be constant conflict, which makes it fun. And there's always the stakes, because the stakes are whatever you're imagining happens when the water breaks through. So you really you can cast yourself as a hero, which would be an engineer or like some sort of benevolent giant. Or another fun role reversal is to build really good dams and then have the stakes like where the dams seem impenetrable, and then be the destroyer of the dams. Either by, throwing snowballs, rocks, or being a giant again. And really nothing at risk, because it's just water going back down the hill. Because, I mean, usually, my backpack would be at risk, because who knows what I would have done with that. So that's probably, like, why is your homework? Well, it was in a snowbank. The dam broke, and it washed my homework away. So that was really a good interaction with both. That was like slush and snow. And then as we went up the hill from my bus stop, I guess we could talk about a great figure in my childhood, Billy, who was a young man. And he, as an adult, he moved to the big farm, but he lived next door to me. He was probably, I guess when I was in grammar school, he was in high school. When I was in late grammar school. So when I was in 6th grade, he was probably a freshman or sophomore. So maybe 4 to 6 years older than me. And he was a redhead, and he was cool. I mean, he was like, he wasn't a bit, like, he was like the good kind of bad boy. Like, I guess. I never saw him as a bad boy because he didn't even need that. Like, he rode motorcycles, like built motorcycles, rebuilt motorcycles, had rusty motorcycles in his parents' backyard all the time. And in the winter, rode snowmobiles. And my parents were not a big Billy fan. And he also was a redhead. And he had this snowmobile suit that we, as kids, he was just a legendary figure of my childhood. Because, as I talked about, there was also the BB Kids, which Billy was friends with. And he was more of a neutral figure, where the BB Kids were more of a myth. They lived up the street with Billy. They were actually bad boys, even though they were friends with Billy. I don't know what they actually were. Like, I spent so much of my time creating myths and wanting my life to be like a TV show that I think I cast them. But though we did have interactions with them as kids. So Billy was like, he was more like whatever, who was that dude? You know, one of those, he was like cool. He was cool. I guess that's as simple as it can be. And so his house was the green, like right before I got to my house would be his house. And usually I guess he was in school. I don't even know, like, I don't even know where he went to high school or what his situation was. I mean, I can imagine that he at some point was like, I know, I don't need any high school anymore. I've grown out of it. But so, like, if you passed his house and he was home, it was always a fantasy of ours to be able to ride on his snowmobile, which my mom would not allow us to do. And I think I talked about it in the podcast. There was one I don't know where my parents were, and I know it was nighttime, that he let me ride his snowmobile. Now, usually, because he was a redhead and my brother Carl was a redhead, so they were a little bit closer. And I think Carl's just a nicer person than me. And so I think Carl probably got a ride on the snowmobile before I did. Plus, Carl was a little bit more courageous than me. But at some point, I remember Billy was like, let's go. And it was like the snow was really intense because I remember, like, we could even go in the road and we were he was jumping over snowbanks into the road. Nothing too extreme. Like, mostly if you went up a snowbank and went down, for a kid, that was amazing. And then there was like some sort of island, and he went between two trees, like a traffic island or something. And I don't know where else we went. I mean, I remember that maybe I had like slipped off the back of it or something. And then my mom found out, and she was like, I can remember that was my only ride on the snowmobile. Though we sat on the snowmobile all the time, because he always, like, just like his motorcycles, he had a backyard full of like old snowmobiles that he was working on. So we would sit on them a lot and pretend we were racing, like Carl and I, or maybe Bill, my imaginary friend, and I. But so that was another cool thing and the cool thing was, we happened to live down our street was a big golf course, and my parents don't golf, so we weren't members of this golf course. And this was before like golf course developments. So I guess at some point there was probably houses on this golf course, but it was mostly like you went in down this court or whatever, and it ended at the golf course. And we happened to live, where this street ended was the 18th hole, and it was very hilly. Like, you hit off a tee, and then there was a huge drop hill, and then, long fairways or something. I don't know. I don't golf. Like, it was par 5 or something. And, like, this was the most amazing place to go sledding. Like, one of the luckiest things as a child was that we lived this close to someplace that had high quality sledding, like almost too high quality. And so anytime, I don't remember. I think you only go sledding like twice a year because then you get so cold. You're like, okay. Or, especially with me and Carl, you push the envelope too much and then you say, okay, well, now we can't sled anymore because we pushed the envelope. Yeah, but, especially in Syracuse, it was always freezing cold. Like anytime it was good to sled. And I remember we did have like snow clothes. So we'd have snow pants, probably boots and socks. So you're fit, and then gloves and a jacket and a hat, and probably a scarf was pretty essential, but usually you'd be sweating pretty good. And so trying to think, like I lived in the era of plastic sleds. I think we did have, a metal sled at our house, but one it was wicked metal and wood. It was wicked heavy. And I also think incorrectly, those are called toboggans. That's probably why. Like, I think that was like actually a good invention was these plastic sleds because, those toboggans were, they go really fast and, they weren't as flexible. And if you so yeah, I think it was best. And I think the sleds I spent the most time with were orange plastic sleds from where else but Kmart's. And I think the orange sled either had blue handles or white handles. And I think we had, we had the circular sleds. But I think that was our primary sleds. I think we had two of them. And if people were really taking sled, like it was a Saturday or Sunday, and people were off around the holidays or something, the hill could get pretty busy. But otherwise, it would be usually me and my siblings, and then maybe some of the other kids that lived in the neighborhood or my cousins or something if they had come by. But I guess that would be more on the holidays too. And so, I don't know how familiar people are with golf, but it's a sport where you hit this ball. I don't know, I know people love it, but it just seems to me like some sort of, I guess if you're emotionally, but anyway, there's three different kinds of tees, which I guess freaking hello, 2016's calling. But at least when I was a kid, there was a pro, there was an amateur, and then I'm just going to say a starter tee or a new tee, but they had a more patriarchal term for it. And I know from my family that my Aunt Helen was the best golfer in our family. Maybe her brother Mike was pretty good too, but Uncle Jerry, he was pretty good. So I think those three, but Aunt Helen, she would always win the golf contests that they played. But so at this particular thing, the pro and the amateur tee were up on a hill that had a wall, a wooden wall where I think they would put flowers and stuff when they were golfing. And then there was the last set of tees. I think those were red tees. And then there was the hill. And it was a long hill. Not only was it pretty steep, but not too steep where you're it was really good exercise. And if you really got some speed going, you could go really far. And so we would go there. And I guess I don't know if this is the latest version of extreme sports, or maybe, I don't know if anybody that got into extreme sports through sledding, or I guess they have that, it's a thing like bobsledding that you can do. But so you would go sledding there. Now the conditions really did dictate how fun it was and how cold it was outside. And I guess how many kids, if you had too many kids, or too many ages of kids, it might be less fun because, ideally, one of my sister's friends would be there so she could hang out with them. Or if it was just me, Carl, and Sheila, if I think we're like allowed to go sledding by ourselves. I think we'd probably get bored pretty fast because you go up and down and walking up the hill, you'd start to sweat. And so you'd need a nice air temperature where you wouldn't get cold if you were sweating. And you just get worn out, and then you'd like, actually, even back then, you could put a rope at the front of even a cheap plastic sled like we had, which would help when you're carrying up the hill. But if you didn't have that, you'd have to carry the sled under your arms, and it was a really light, basic plastic. And I don't know, like, let's talk about the kinds of sleds. So you had a 2-person plastic sled that you could probably fit 3 kids in. And it was just like one piece of plastic, that the same kind of plastic they make kids swimming pools in that aren't effective. I mean, not inflatable. So some sort of plastic that I don't think is around too much anymore, but very durable, but not a shiny plastic, and more of a matte plastic. And then it had handles that you would hold on to when you were in the sled. That were the hard, shiny plastic, and you would need to hold on to those on this hill, and especially if you made a jump, which is that's where things would start to go off and this was like another childhood myth, like the older kids would get there, and they were the ones that built the jump, and I think at some point we became the ones that would build a jump, and I was never like much of an engineer. I was better at role playing that I was a giant engineer with the water and the slush. But let's talk sleds before we talk jumps. So that was the one kind of sled, the 2 to 3 person. And I think 2 people is usually best because I don't know how fun it would be for the 3rd person in the back. And 3 people, like 2 people, you could get enough momentum going. But the weight wouldn't slow you down. And you would really need packed snow or like wet snow, but not too wet. If the snow was either too wet or too new, it would slow you down. So ideally it'd be cold, so it'd be like near icy conditions. But then if it was cold and near icy conditions, going uphill stunk, and it was easier, to sustain an owie. And it would be freezing, so you'd get worn out. But so that was one kind of sled. Now, another popular type of sled is the circle sled, which is like a dish, popularized. I think at some point they made them of metal because I think in National Lampoons, Chevy Chase uses like an aluminum one. But by the time I was a kid, those were plastic. I don't think I had any aluminum sleds, so they'd be pretty cool. I just wonder what the cold transfer would be and which would go faster, plastic or aluminum. And I don't remember, like, I think the downsides of the cool thing about the plastics, like 2-person sled, is that it's going to go straight almost no matter what. It almost had 2 runners on the underneath of it, like fins, so it would stay going straight. And you could try to turn it and like you could accidentally turn it, or like you could lean and it would do a slow turn. But otherwise it went straight. The problem with the circular dish sleds is it would just seem like you had very little control. And especially if you're jumping, you want to be going straight at the jump because you don't want to go off the side because you could ruin the jump. But also like, it wasn't a good idea to go on it. Like you had to see where you were going so you could prepare for it, and then continue your momentum straight ahead. And I think just the spinning around, I guess maybe, I don't know if it was a personal choice. I just didn't like those circles, those dish sleds. And we'll just get to final toboggan. Like, so there was like the small toboggan, the Fearless Flyer, right? Was that what they were called? Or like the RC Flyer or whatever, Radio Flyer. I think those were what they were called. Which Rosebud, I think, is the most famous of those. The Rosebud was like an early edition. And those were sleds, and they were made of metal. And we had one because I remember seeing pictures of my dad pretending to pull us in that, or 1 or 2 of us. And that was a very picturesque Saturday Evening Post Norman Rockwell type sled. I think, I don't know, if they have like a like the Pledge of Allegiance, like winter edition, you'd have like a sled. The Radio Flyer would be in there probably, or maybe the Radio Flyer was the wagon. Maybe they made a sled and a wagon. I mean, that would make sense, right? Because they're working with like whatever that was, steel or metal or aluminum. Yeah, so that was one kind of sled. And that was like usually a 1 or 2 person sled, and it seemed like it had controls. And you would sit up, and then it would have rails, just like a sleigh, like Santa's sleigh or a sleigh ride sleigh. And conceptually, I think as a kid, like especially with the hill we were at, one, it was too heavy because it was made from like some sort of iron. Maybe not, yeah. And also, the conditions had to be spectacular for that thing to move. And so we did not, I don't really remember using that. But then there's like something called a toboggan. Oh, yeah, there's 2 kinds of toboggans, too. There's the rail edition toboggan. But this is the kind of toboggan that I'm thinking of. I was mixing up my rosebud with the toboggan. And I don't even know if that's the right thing. But a toboggan is like I'm trying to think if you've never pictured this before. But it has like a curly Q at the front, and it's like, usually it's wood, like some sort of like, this would usually like only like an adult would show up with one of these things, because there's no way you'd need 2 adults to carry it. Yeah, but it was this long sled, and with it was made of wood, like some sort of wood that you could bend, and let's see, like probably waxed and stuff like that. I don't know. And it was just this long piece of wood with a curl at the front. And it usually even had, the one I'm imagining, I think was my Uncle Eddie's. It even had like padded seats. And usually these were like a 4, 6, 8 person toboggan. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what I'm calling it. And you would get in it and you would have no control. And the joy of it was like being in it with this collective experience with all these people. And again, I think the conditions had to be perfect. No one could get in the way, because this was a piece of wood with like the weight of 4 to 8 people. And it kind of had this plow on the front. So you need everybody to be coordinated to get in it, or like an adult or a teen at the front to like launch the thing. But it would be fun, and usually, like, you'd be holding people, so it'd be fun. Like, you'd have some closeness, like, with your siblings, and maybe, like, I can imagine for very rare times feeling, like, a protective aspect of my siblings and my cousins or whatever. And, but that thing, then someone would have to pull it up the hill again. So that was a lot of work, and it just felt like conceptually, I don't know, like, and then there's inner tubes. I don't think there was a lot of inner tube sledding when I was a kid, that I remember. But then there was jumps, and this orange sled was made to jump. These orange or basic plastic 2-person sleds. So usually you'd build a jump. Ideally, kids had all these theories, and I used to fantasize that I could make a good jump. But the best jumps were like even seasoned, like they'd be made and then the weather would hold. So the jump would be out there and it'd be able to freeze, and then you'd be able to put more snow and ice on it. So you'd have to really pack the snow, and you'd really need a good lead in so that you just didn't crash right through the jump and like ruin it. So whoever was making these jumps really, I mean, we would try. And I think maybe, like, as we got older, maybe we made 1 or 2. But there was a couple times, whatever these jumps were made, like on this hill, you'd fly. And then sometimes you had to hold on to the sled and you had to sit upright. And, of course, people like my brother Carl would, like, jump out of the sled in midair. And it wasn't like you got so high. I think it was the first chance as kids to get high. I mean, and I'm not kidding. Like, with adrenaline and thrills, and like sometimes someone would like get a scrape or get a little sad, But it was always also like braggadocio, like, oh, just see what I did, or oh, I dare you to go backwards, or close your eyes, or don't hold on, or kids trying to go over in their saucers. So that was always nice. And there was something like very mechanically soothing, I guess, about sledding and then going over the jumps and then having to walk all the way back up the hill. And you'd be hearing the other kids going down and the noises of laughter and yelling. They kind of seemed very nice and soothing and comforting. And then the sweating was good because you'd be warm. And then at some point your extremities would get cold and then you'd go inside or you'd just be tired. But I think usually boredom or like someone crying would be the two signs it was time to go home. Though I don't know if you're like, sometimes your fingers, your toes get cold to be like, okay, I'm done. I want to go home now. Yeah, but another really enjoyable thing about the snow is like being able to lie there, like in a fresh pile of snow. And some people would make snow angels, and that was always a fun thing to do. But I don't know. I found it especially when you were really warm because you had a lot of winter clothes on, lying in deep powder and being immersed so that you almost lose sight of the horizon, but you still have sight of the sky. And the snow's deep enough that you can't quite feel the earth beneath you. You can only feel the snow. And even because you're below the horizon, your hearing is different and you can hear different snow sounds like crackling and the regular sounds change. And there's something very visceral about the cold, being so close to something cold that it really is a perfect place to lay and to think about how warm you feel, with warmth all around you, and that you're cradled in something so safe and warm and nice, and you're looking off in the sky. The stage just happens to be the perfect blue. It's just some wispy clouds in the sky. And it's you're warm, you're super warm, with whatever that wool is, but you're not hot. And you see, man, this feels good. It feels like I'm I don't know, man. I just feel so good right now. So warm, so secure, so nice. Good night. I want to thank everybody that reviewed the show over on Apple Podcast, from Australia, Prawn Frog, who said does hiya, like our friend Miss Piggy does, Kermit, and says seriously induced sleep, hiya. But podcast actually sends me sleep with enthralling stories I can't get enough of. Funny, lighthearted, banterful podcast. Never fails to do the trick. Scooter seems pretty decent. Working my way through the old episodes, so my only issue is dealing with the app. Men Gem 1, no clue what this is about, 5 stars. Fall asleep within a minute or two, dealing with some stuff that's making sleep tough, and I tried this out, totally hooked. Thank you. Good. This is from 735. The podcast is good. Thank you. Number one TT, speaks too fast. That's not relaxing. That might just be the beginning of the show with the ads, or the podcast might have got bumped to 1.5 speed. I don't think maybe I am speaking too fast. I don't know. I'll try to slow down. It works for me. 4 stars. This is from Akari. Solved my mind-spinning insomnia. I thought to myself, this isn't what I expected the first time I listened. I wonder if I'll be able to fall asleep. Then I fell asleep. Thank you. I listened to Star Trek episodes. Waxana. I find myself correcting him when he says Risa or Lux. I'm not doing a bit either. I find myself correcting him, but generally meandering recaps knocking me right out. So soon as I have some flexible income, I'll become a patron. Thanks. But it doesn't work for everybody, which is correct. Nuanced rambling from Uncle Scoots, from Faye from UK, which rhymes. Just discovered the podcast a few days ago. Enjoy the wordplay and languid rambles. Don't last beyond 20 minutes. A strangely potent sleep aid. True believer. This is from Ann R. Heard about it on BuzzFeed. Highly praised and figured why not? Nothing else has been working. Nothing to lose. Best decision I made. I don't think I've ever made it to a story. I barely make it through the intro before I'm out like a light. It helps me sleep through the most of the night. Occasionally, sorry, distracted by the next. Thank you, Anna. This one, is this man drunk or high as a kite? No, unfortunately, this is my natural state. And 1 star. Please ignore the 5-star reviews, cause COS, this app is dreadful. It's a podcast, by the way. But do not download. Don't waste your time. Counting sheet is far more effective than this irritating nonsense. That's from Sunshine. Little ray of sunshine. Thank you. ANG says, great podcast. Usually fall asleep. Occasionally I don't. Scoots keeps me company either way. DB340 from Australia. Thanks. I appreciate the time and effort of making this podcast. Quite unorthodox. First I found it strange to listen to, but after a few episodes I was hooked. Many thanks. Many thanks to you. And PJ finally says, works every time. Literally can't tell you what gets talked about. Never make it that far. I just remember the phrases, deep dark night and creaky dulcet tones. And I appreciate the help Scooter provides. I'm a Patreon subscriber. Since starting to listen to 3 months ago, I've only used medication when I was sick and needing NyQuil. Worth a try. Thanks, everybody, PJ and everybody else, reviewing it on Apple Podcasts. Thanks and good night. Support for Sleep With Me comes from Odoo. If you feel like you're wasting your time and money with your current business software, or just want to know what you could be missing, then you need to join the millions of other users who switched to Odoo. Odoo is the affordable, all-in-one management software with a library of fully integrated business applications that help you get more done in less time for a fraction of the price. To learn more, visit odoo.com/withme. That's ODOO.com/withme. Odoo. Modern management made simple.